Hey, I'm Luke Does Stuff, and I'm also very ill. I have been gone for about a week. I haven't uploaded a video since like the 1st or the 2nd, and yeah, I haven't uploaded a video since the 2nd, so it's been like 4 days since I uploaded a video, and that is simply because I have been ill, very ill, like badly ill, like hurled over a toilet, throwing up, ill. You probably didn't want to hear that, but you know, that's life, I guess. I'm not going to be able to make daily videos, you know, just because I'm a human. I get human diseases, you know. Blah. Yeah. That being said, today we're going to talk about Tony Stark, Iron Man. Roll the intro. This is Tony Stark Iron Man number 8. This is Tony Stark Iron Man number 9. And I know what you're thinking. Those of you who actually keep up with comic books and know anything about the medium. Tony Stark Iron Man in issue 9 isn't the latest issue. You're missing like a year's worth of comics. I know. I'm fully aware. I know this is like before even the War of Realms tie-ins and stuff, and that happened in April of last year, so I'm extremely behind on stuff. But this big but, I don't care. It's my money, it's my channel, I'll do what I want. Yeah, yeah, because first of all, England doesn't get comics like the same way America does. It's not like we. And B, in March of last year, we had a massive like snow thing, to the point where we called it the Beast of the East. So comic books just weren't being delivered to my comic book shop. And like they weren't being like delivered and they didn't get any new deliveries from between March and like they didn't get any new deliveries between March and October. So I have been playing catch up since October to get caught up with the books that I'm getting. So yeah, Tony Stark Iron Man number 8 and number 9. You probably noticed that in my ranking every comic book that I read in 2019 video, the end of that or during that, when I spoke about Tony Stark Iron Man, I think I ranked it like in the middle, and that is because these two issues saved the run for me. I wasn't enjoying Tony Stark Iron Man, and then they have this actual arc now. There was just one and done stories before, and now it has an actual arc, and it's an interesting arc that, yeah, it's written in the most confusing way possible, and it is just technobabble, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it doesn't really explain the rules of the actual setting. I'll explain why it probably should explain the rules of the setting in a minute. because they do reveal something, and they reveal what they reveal is important, and it is big, because it's literally the villain of the arc. And they explain, like, oh, the escape was created to be governed by what is essentially an artificial intelligence version of Tony Stark's adoptive mother. And the whole, like, emotional backbone of the story is kind of the conflict between this artificial version of Tony Stark's mum, which is inherently evil and inherently trying to keep her son to herself and keep him trapped in this escape forever, and Tony Stark's birth mum, who Tony Stark knows next to nothing about. They've had literally no, like, contact with each other, and now she's come back into his life, and she's dating one of his employees, and it's weird. It's entirely weird, and that's kind of where the conflict of this arc is coming from. Of course, they do have the conflict back in the real world, where it's where they're all fighting the controller, but that isn't like an emotional fight. Yeah, it's got stakes, because basically everyone that was booted out of the escape, which, think of it like Ready Player One, where it's like a big virtual reality game, where you have to find the mask of Iron Man instead of the Easter egg, and yeah, that is very interesting in and of itself. But it's essentially the people that have been kicked out of the escape. The controller has basically let them back in, given them a backstage pass, but also given them real world weapons. So they're in virtual reality, thinking it's virtual reality. I'm in the comfort of my own living room, not thinking that they're actually outside with a gun shooting people. And yeah, they're actually committing real crimes and doing real harm to people. So the world superheroes, and when I say the world superheroes, I mean the champions, because they're the only ones that don't have anything to do ever. They get involved. Iron Man has to get involved, because it's his book. The Wasp, who's currently dating Tony Stark, and Rhodey, who is currently riding this, like, I think it's called a manticore. No, I don't know. I'll find out what it's called, and then. For the sake of the video, we're just going to call it the Manticore. But yeah, Rhodey's riding this thing. It's basically like a Metal Gear. It's got like actual weapons on it, like missiles and stuff. He's not in the War Machine armor, because when he tried to go into the War Machine armor, because he actually died in that armor not too long ago during Civil War II. He still has this kind of PTSD disorder, and kind of like claustrophobia being in the armor. So he can't actually go into the War Machine armor. But he is in this kind of like big like Metal Gear type thing, and they're fighting the actual controller, who's like big roided up like Hulk like thing, and they're having this big fight, and halfway through the fight Tony Stark just gets a voice in his head, and it's his mum, who's also the artificial intelligence that's inside his armor now, which is kind of weird. Like, imagine having your mum tell you how to fight. Like, that's just weird. Like, so Tony Stark goes to the Escape and encounters his parents, and they offer him a drink, and he drinks it. And by a drink, I mean like the drink on the cover. And anyone who knows Iron Man knows that he used to be an alcoholic, very bad alcoholic, and even though that storyline did take place like over 70 years ago, not over 70 years ago, over like 30 years ago, the storyline took place in 1979, 1980, so it took place like 40 years ago. Oh my god. Yeah. And of course, because like the timeline in Marvel like isn't like the timeline in real life. Tony Stark is still reeling from that experience. So I really don't know where this is, and my camera died. Great. I've completely forgotten where I got up to, but I assume we got up to the bit where Tony Stark's gone back on the drink, which is not good, because if you're aware of who Tony Stark is and his history, and you will know that he used to be a quite heavy alcoholic. So yeah, not quite good that he's touching the booze again, but you know, who knows. Yeah, and the next issue 9 picks up right where the last one left off, and it sees that. So we have Tony Stark. He's seeing everything as kind of the 1960s. So he sees his mum, his birth mum, that he knows nothing about, and that's from Britain, and he has only come into his life recently. He sees her as some like villainess from the 60s, and she has to run away, essentially, and meets up with a machine man who's infiltrated the Escape, and they have to basically break the brainwashing, which they end up doing later on in the issue, by singing a song which breaks the brainwashing, but Tony Stark's AI mum essentially is like, if you can't be with me, if I can't have you, then no one can. I'm gonna end your life, essentially, or I'm going to trap you here for the rest of your life, essentially, and that's where this issue leaves off. There is more that happens in the issue, mainly to do with Bethany Cabe, who's under the controller's control, and she's with Andy Bang, who is looking after the unconscious body of what's her face, of Tony Stark's mum, and he's looking after her, trying to get her to wake up, and she comes in, waving a gun around, saying, "Oh, I'm going to kill you," and then she ends up snapping out of it after beating up Handy Bang, and yeah, that's kind of where the issue leaves off, where she comes out of her like controlled state, and the artificial intelligence version of Tony Stark's mum is essentially like, you know, if I can't have you, no one can. You're going to stay here for the rest of your life. It is a good story. It is a good story, as long as I know I don't sound necessarily infused by it, but it is good. There is good in this. But Dan Slott is a writer that has a lot of tropes that he can't seem to get out of, and all of them are bad. He has a thing for creating large casts of characters and spending more time with the side characters than the character that the book is named after. He did the same thing with Spider-Man, where he had like a massive like catalogue of side characters, and they got like entire arcs of character development, and Spider-Man just was like, "Hey, I'm here. It's my book. Oh, look, there's Mockingbird. She's gonna get more page time than me." But yeah, that is the kind of annoying thing. Not quite as apparent here, since like it is the end-ish of the arc, where you know, Tony's going to be having we're going to be gearing up for the big fight, the big finale fight. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. Tony Stark going back on booze is something that we've seen before, and it's something that we've seen a lot before. But here it's kind of being done in a different way, where it's kind of in virtual reality, and we don't know if what happens in virtual reality will affect his real life body, or if like this will stay in his mind later on. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit a like, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that lovely stuff. Donate to my Patreon, head over to my Twitch, where you will see live comic book reviews when I have review for the stuff that actually comes out in the week. And yeah, I do want suggestions of stuff that I can do over on Twitch, because like I've essentially come to the decision that Twitch is a lot better than YouTube as far as video making is concerned, or live streaming is concerned. Video making YouTube is still the king of the platform, or queen, because it's kind of run by a woman, but it's the king platform of video making, even though it does treat its creators like crap, but we can't really do anything about it. It still makes the most money and still makes people the most money, even though it is just trying to become television 2.0. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.